The shack stood right where the beach met the steep bush-covered hillside behind it. It was tiny, hardly more than a boathouse, with a plank door and a salt and sand-encrusted window on the front wall, and another similarly encrusted window on each of the side walls. Inside, the front half was filled with fishing and boating equipment. The back half was filled with a table and chairs, a sink bench against the back wall with a tap that supplied rainwater from a tank, and a single bed along the southern wall. It was quite dim inside the shack, in spite of the windows, because the daylight was already failing as late afternoon turned to evening. They toweled off and changed into warmer clothes. Penny lit a hurricane lamp and cooked a couple of steaks on a Primus stove. They ate the steaks and drank a bottle of red wine they'd brought with them as it got even darker outside. They were both astonished by the speed with which the darkness fell. It was that absolute primeval country darkness which can still be experienced in remote places. There was no moon that night. The sky was clouded over, and there wasn't another light for miles. They felt completely alone at the end of the universe, as it were. They might have been the last people left in existence, just them and the distant roar of the waves. They were happy to be that way. Sam and Penny were old school friends, but they'd only recently become lovers. It was less than a week ago, in fact, that Penny had taken Sam quite literally by the hand and led him to her black-painted bedroom with its one fluorescent poster of Jimi Hendrix on the wall above the bed, where she took his virginity. Sam was uncircumcised, so the first time had been quite painful for him, and he'd come very quickly in an excruciating, exquisite combination of pleasure and pain. This time he was hoping it would be less painful for him, and he would last for longer. He wasn't sure he loved Penny, but he did genuinely like her and wanted to give her pleasure too. Penny was a jolly girl with a solid, well-rounded figure. She didn't have the stick figure of current fashion at all, but she was very satisfying to hold on to in bed for just that reason, he'd discovered. Older men liked her too, he'd noticed, because she was sweet, funny, and had interesting views on a whole range of topics. Best of all, she appeared to be as fond of him as he was of her, even fonder, perhaps. She took the lead in this, as she did in so many other things. Sam often felt himself to be younger, less experienced, more naive, almost an innocent compared to her. They moved rapidly from the table to the bed, shedding their clothes along the way. Penny lay back on the narrow bed naked, and Sam lowered himself on top of her. He was relieved to find the pain was far less intense this time, and he was able to make love for much longer without coming. Penny really started to enjoy it as well, and they were making love with great enthusiasm when Sam felt her body stiffen under him. He thought she must be approaching orgasm and was about to redouble his own efforts when he suddenly realized her look was one of terror rather than ecstasy. "There's a face!" she gasped. Sam could hardly understand what she was saying. "A what?" "A face!" "Where?" "At the window." "What window?" "Behind you." Sam felt his exposed back go cold. He twisted himself to look back over his shoulder and saw that what she said was true. There was indeed a ghostly white face pressed up against the cobwebbed, heavily encrusted glass of the shack's northern window, peering in. A hand on either side framed the face's dark eyes as they tried to focus on what was happening in the shadowy, lamp-lit interior.